Ladies and gentlemen, let's get one thing straight. Being a nice person is not the issue. The issue is in how you show up to the world. Many people believe that if they are kind, considerate, and always putting others first, they will get the love and respect they deserve. But here's the thing, niceness alone won't cut it. It's about balance, boundaries, and understanding your worth. Now, don't get me wrong. Niceness is a great trait to have. It's a quality that reflects a good heart. But niceness, when unchecked, can make you a doormat. You see, life isn't about just being nice. It's about being strong, assertive, and knowing when to say no. If you spend all your energy pleasing others and never take the time to nurture your own needs, you'll find yourself neglected, undervalued, and isolated. The truth is, nice people often end up alone not because of their kindness, but because they fail to establish strong boundaries, communicate their needs, and assert their desires. In the long run, this leads to frustration and loneliness. Now, let me offer a better way. Be kind, but also be firm. Show respect, but demand it in return. Be considerate, but never forget to value yourself. A life built on these principles will keep you surrounded by people who genuinely appreciate you for who you are, not just for what you give. So remember this, nice people don't end up alone because they are nice. They end up alone because they forget their own value in the process of pleasing others. Being nice doesn't mean sacrificing your needs for others. Without healthy boundaries, you leave yourself vulnerable to being taken advantage of. Nice people often try to please everyone, which leaves them drained, unnoticed, and unappreciated. Nice people avoid confrontation at all costs, but in doing so, they fail to address issues that can lead to stronger relationships. When you always put others first, you begin to undervalue yourself. You stop recognizing your own needs and desires as valid. Nice people tend to overextend themselves, taking on too many responsibilities, which ultimately isolates them from forming deeper, more meaningful connections. The constant need for validation from others can keep you in a cycle of disappointment. True connection starts when you stop seeking approval and embrace who you are. A nice person's constant willingness to accommodate others can make them a doormat. Relationships should be based on mutual respect, not self-sacrifice. Nice people may avoid speaking up for what they want or need, which creates imbalance in relationships and leads to unmet expectations. The nicest people often forget to invest in themselves, whether in self-care, personal growth, or emotional well-being. This neglect can lead to loneliness. When you're just nice, people may take advantage of you or perceive you as weak, leading to loneliness and frustration because they never truly see your value. Let's talk about kindness without boundaries, a concept that sounds great in theory but can leave you in a tough spot if you don't understand how to manage it. You see, being kind is a wonderful thing. It's the bedrock of any meaningful relationship. But there's a critical difference between being kind and allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. And if you don't set clear boundaries, people will take advantage of your generosity. It's human nature. People will naturally seek out what benefits them, sometimes without even realizing it. And if you're the one constantly giving without limits, they'll gladly take. Here's the thing, kindness without boundaries doesn't make you a better person. In fact, it can work against you in the long run. People will respect you more when you show them that you have self-respect. And self-respect comes from setting clear, firm boundaries. If you're constantly the one to give without ever asking for something in return, people won't value you as much as they should. They'll see you as a resource, not a person. When you put everyone else's needs ahead of your own without considering your own, you're telling the world that your value is less than theirs. Now, I'm not saying don't be kind. Kindness is essential. It's what builds the foundation of trust and mutual respect. But there has to be a balance. You need to know when to give, when to step back, and when to say no. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It shows that you know your own worth and that you have your own priorities. People need to see that you value yourself in the same way you value them. If you don't have boundaries, you're setting yourself up for burnout. You can only give so much before you run empty. And when you're empty, you've got nothing left to offer anyone, not your family, your friends, or yourself. Being kind without limits can lead to resentment because you start feeling unappreciated. And that's when loneliness sets in. It's a simple fact, people who are always available, always the one to help, always the one to make the sacrifice, often end up alone, not because they're not good people, but because they've neglected their own needs for far too long. True kindness, real generosity comes from a place of abundance, not depletion. So the next time you find yourself offering help or making sacrifices, ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I feel like I have to? That simple question can help you identify where your boundaries are and whether they're serving you or hurting you. Kindness is about offering value, not about losing yourself in the process. If you're kind with boundaries, people will respect you and they'll know you have something to give, not just something to lose. People pleasing, when you get right down to it, is a trap. It starts with a simple desire to be liked, to be accepted, and to be the person everyone turns to for help or support. And who doesn't want to be liked? But the problem is, when you spend all your time trying to make everyone else happy, you start losing sight of what makes you happy. It's easy to think that by constantly giving, constantly accommodating, you're going to build stronger relationships, but what you're really doing is building a wall between yourself and true connection. The reality is, when you're always trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one, especially yourself. People can sense when you're only doing something for approval, and while it might work in the short term, it breeds resentment in the long run. The truth is, people don't respect someone who doesn't have the courage to stand up for their own needs. They might appreciate you in the moment, but deep down, they'll start to take you for granted because you've shown them that your value is tied to your ability to please them. Here's the kicker: when you focus so much on pleasing others, you stop focusing on your own goals, your own values, your own purpose. You begin to live a life based on what everyone else thinks you should be doing instead of what you know you should be doing. This leads to dissatisfaction, frustration, and eventually isolation. Because when you're constantly giving yourself away to others, you have nothing left for the relationships that matter most. You'll find that those who truly value you are the ones who see you standing strong, knowing when to say yes, and just as importantly, knowing when to say no. Let me be clear, it's not about being selfish, it's about being self-aware. When you focus all your energy on pleasing others, you might find yourself surrounded by people, but not truly connected to anyone. True connection comes from mutual respect, not from constantly bending over backward to make others happy at the cost of your own happiness. Real relationships are built on authenticity, not obligation. So, the next time you feel that pull to please, take a moment to ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want to, or because I feel obligated? If the answer is the latter, you're heading down a dangerous path. You've got to give yourself permission to be real. When you do, people will appreciate you more, not because you're constantly giving, but because you've set the standard for the kind of person you want to be, and they will respect that. You'll stop being someone who is always available, always obliging, and you'll become someone who is valued for who they are, not what they can do. The true secret to building lasting relationships is not pleasing everyone, it's finding the balance between giving and standing firm in your own worth. Fear of conflict is one of the biggest obstacles to success in both personal and professional relationships. It's the fear that if you speak your mind or confront an issue, you'll upset someone, lose a relationship, or create a situation that feels too uncomfortable to handle. So instead of addressing the issue, you let it slide, hoping it will resolve itself. But let me tell you something, conflict doesn't just disappear. What happens when you avoid it is that it festers, it grows, and eventually it comes back stronger than ever, often when you least expect it. Conflict is part of life, part of growth, and part of building real, meaningful connections. If you want to succeed, if you want to build relationships that are strong, healthy, and sustainable, you need to get comfortable with the idea that conflict will arise, and it's not a bad thing. In fact, conflict can be the catalyst for deeper understanding and stronger relationships if handled correctly. When you confront issues head-on, you're showing others that you care enough about the relationship to address problems and work through them. This is what builds trust and respect. The fear of conflict often stems from the belief that being agreeable, keeping the peace, and avoiding tough conversations will make things easier. But what happens when you do that? You begin to suppress your own opinions, your own needs, and eventually you start to lose yourself in the process. And the irony is, the more you avoid conflict, the more you create tension, because when you bottle up your feelings or ignore issues, they don't just disappear, they simmer beneath the surface and build resentment. When you avoid difficult conversations, you let problems grow unchecked. You might think you're saving someone's feelings in the moment, but in reality, you're doing them a disservice. True connection is built on honesty and transparency, not on walking around eggshells. Avoiding conflict might give you temporary relief, but it doesn't solve anything, and it certainly doesn't lead to the kind of deep, meaningful relationships that are the foundation of a fulfilled life. The key to overcoming this fear is understanding that conflict is an opportunity, not a threat. It's a chance to clarify misunderstandings, to grow, and to show others that you're willing to invest in the relationship enough to face the hard stuff. Conflict, when handled with maturity and respect, can actually strengthen a bond. It forces you to communicate better, to listen more intently, and to engage at a deeper level than if everything were just smooth sailing all the time. So stop avoiding the tough conversations. Embrace conflict as a natural part of life and relationships. When you're willing to confront issues directly, you take control of your life. You stop letting fear dictate your actions. You set the standard for how you expect to be treated, and in doing so, you show others how to treat you with the respect and honesty you deserve. Don't let the fear of conflict hold you back from building the kind of life and relationships that truly fulfill you. The courage to face conflict head-on is the key to becoming the kind of person who is respected, trusted, and admired. Lack of self-worth is a silent killer of dreams, relationships, and success. When you don't believe in your own value, it's like walking through life with one hand tied behind your back. You don't ask for what you deserve because you don't think you're worthy of it. You don't set the standards you should because deep down you're convinced that you can't achieve anything better. And let me tell you, that mindset is dangerous. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of settling for less than you deserve. The problem with a lack of self-worth is that it leads you to accept situations, relationships, and opportunities that don't serve you. You allow people to treat you poorly, you stay in toxic environments, and you give up on your own goals because you believe you're not capable of achieving something better. But what you need to understand is that self-worth isn't something that's handed to you by others. It's something you must cultivate within yourself. You have to believe without a doubt that you are worth every bit of success, love, and respect that comes your way. When you don't value yourself, you end up chasing approval from others, seeking validation in all the wrong places. The truth is, you can never truly feel secure in your own skin if you're constantly measuring your worth against how others see you. People will treat you how you allow them to treat you, and when you don't set clear standards for yourself, you'll be stuck with relationships and opportunities that reflect your lack of belief in your own value. If you want to get out of this cycle, you have to start with self-awareness. You need to recognize that your worth is not defined by your circumstances or the opinions of others. Your worth is inherent. It comes from who you are, not from what you do or what people think of you. When you start to believe in your own value, you stop settling for less and you start setting standards that reflect the greatness within you. Self-worth is about recognizing that you deserve the best. It's about understanding that your time, your energy, and your talents are valuable and shouldn't be wasted on things or people who don't respect that. When you value yourself, you stop chasing approval and instead you attract the right people and opportunities that align with who you truly are. You stop being a spectator in your own life and start becoming the architect of your future. So if you find yourself in situations where you feel undervalued, ask yourself, am I treating myself with the respect I deserve? If the answer is no, it's time to make a change. Start setting boundaries. Start demanding respect. Start believing in your potential. Your self-worth is the foundation of everything that follows in life. When you value yourself, others will follow suit. Don't wait for someone else to recognize your worth. Recognize it for yourself, and the world will begin to treat you accordingly. Overextending yourself is one of the quickest ways to drain your energy, lose focus, and diminish your effectiveness. It's the mindset that says, I can do it all, but the reality is, you can't. When you take on more than you can handle, you end up spread so thin that nothing gets the attention it truly deserves. You start cutting corners, rushing through tasks, and eventually you lose the quality of your work, the strength of your relationships, and even the clarity of your own purpose. The problem with overextending is that you think you're doing the right thing by saying yes to everyone and everything, but in reality, you're setting yourself up for burnout. You end up juggling so many balls in the air that sooner or later, some of them are going to drop. And when that happens, you not only feel defeated, but the people around you start to notice. The truth is, no one can be at their best when they're constantly stretched beyond their limits. Overextending yourself also leads to a lack of balance. It's easy to lose sight of what's truly important when you're constantly trying to please others or take on too many responsibilities. You give so much of yourself to everyone else that you leave nothing for yourself. Your physical health starts to decline, your mental clarity starts to fade, and your relationships begin to suffer. Why? Because you've become so consumed with meeting everyone else's needs that you've neglected your own. Here's the key: you have to learn to say no. It's that simple. Saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. When you say yes to everything, you end up saying no to the things that truly matter: your goals, your personal growth, your relationships. The time and energy you waste overextending yourself is time you could be investing in the things that will actually move you forward in life. When you choose to focus on a few key things that align with your purpose, your values, and your goals, you start to see progress. You begin to give your best to the things that matter most. Instead of running around trying to please everyone, you're working on creating results that will benefit you and the people around you in the long run. So learn to prioritize. Learn to assess where your time and energy are best spent. There's a big difference between being busy and being productive. Busy work is often just a distraction, a way of avoiding the real work that needs to be done. Productive work, on the other hand, is focused, intentional, and aligned with your vision for the future. When you stop overextending yourself, you start to give your best effort where it counts the most. Don't confuse activity with achievement. Just because you're doing a lot doesn't mean you're getting anything of value done. Focus on what moves you forward, and be deliberate about where you direct your energy. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take the time to refill it. Focus on the essentials and watch how much more effective, energized, and fulfilled you become. The key to success isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters most and doing it well. Seeking approval is a habit that can trap you in a cycle of dependence and frustration. It starts with a simple desire, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be liked, wanting to fit in. It's natural to want others to recognize your value, but when you start seeking validation from the outside world, rather than cultivating it within yourself, you put your happiness and success in the hands of others. This is a dangerous game because you can never fully control how others perceive you, and relying on their approval to feel good about yourself will keep you forever dependent on their opinions. Here's the reality: no matter how much you seek approval, there will always be someone who doesn't agree with you, someone who criticizes, or someone who simply doesn't understand your vision. And if you live your life seeking their approval, you'll never be truly free. You'll constantly be adjusting your actions, your words, and even your goals to match what others expect of you, rather than focusing on what you truly want to achieve. This is where you lose yourself. You start making decisions based on what others think, not on what you believe is right for you. The problem is that no matter how much you seek approval, it will never fill the void inside. It's a temporary fix, a fleeting high that disappears as soon as the next opinion or critique comes your way. You can't build a fulfilling life on the foundation of external validation. If you're constantly looking to others for approval, you'll never feel secure in your own choices. You'll always be second-guessing yourself, always doubting whether you're good enough, and always wondering if you're making the right decisions. The key to breaking free from this cycle is developing internal validation. This means you stop looking to others to define your worth. You start trusting your own judgment, acknowledging your own strengths, and believing in your own potential. When you shift from seeking approval to trusting yourself, you free up your energy to focus on what truly matters, living a life aligned with your purpose, your values, and your vision. When you stop seeking approval, you stop waiting for permission to succeed. You start making decisions with confidence, knowing that your value isn't determined by what others think of you. You take ownership of your life, your success, and your failures, knowing that each step forward is a reflection of your own effort, not someone else's approval. Let me tell you, the minute you stop chasing approval, you'll start attracting the right people and opportunities into your life. People are drawn to those who have the courage to be themselves, who are confident in their own skin, and who don't depend on the approval of others to make bold decisions. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who seek approval, they're the ones who trust themselves, who take risks, and who blaze their own trail. They know that approval is a fleeting thing, and that true fulfillment comes from knowing who they are and standing firm in their own beliefs. So stop seeking approval. Start seeking progress, start seeking purpose, and most importantly, start seeking the confidence to believe in yourself. When you do that, you'll attract everything you need to build a life that's authentic, powerful, and fulfilling. You'll stop waiting for validation from others and start creating your own success. Being a doormat is one of the quickest ways to lose respect, both from others and, more importantly, from yourself. It starts innocently enough. You want to help, you want to be liked, you want to make sure everyone around you is happy and comfortable. But the problem arises when you start to let others walk all over you. You start to give too much of your time, your energy, your resources, often at the expense of your own well-being, and all because you're afraid to stand up for yourself. When you're a doormat, you end up giving and giving without ever asking for anything in return. You make everyone else's needs your priority, but you neglect your own. You let people take advantage of your kindness, and in the process, you lose your sense of worth. You start to believe that you're only valuable when you're serving others, when you're making their lives easier. But let me tell you something: that mindset will drain you, and it will leave you feeling empty. You can't pour from an empty cup. And the more you let others take from you without setting boundaries, the more empty you become. The truth is, when you allow people to walk all over you, you're teaching them how to treat you. You're telling them that your needs don't matter. You're showing them that you'll put up with disrespect, with neglect, and with the manipulation that often comes from people who take advantage of your good nature. And what happens over time? They stop valuing you because you've set the standard that your time and your energy are worth less than theirs. They might appreciate you in the moment, but deep down they won't respect you. Respect is earned by demonstrating that you value yourself enough to stand up for what you need. Being a doormat doesn't make you a better person, it makes you a lesser version of yourself. You can still be kind, generous, and supportive, but you need to set clear boundaries. You need to protect your time, your energy, and your peace. If you constantly say yes to everything, you'll find yourself overwhelmed, exhausted, and resentful. You'll begin to feel like you're being taken for granted, and you'll wonder why no one seems to appreciate all the sacrifices you've made. The key is understanding that your value is not based on how much you can give to others, it's based on the person you are. You deserve respect just as much as anyone else. You need to recognize that your time, your resources, and your well-being are just as important as those of the people around you. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-respect. It's about saying, I matter too, and refusing to let others take advantage of your generosity. When you respect yourself, others will respect you too. The minute you stop being a doormat and start standing firm in your own worth, you'll notice a shift. People will begin to treat you with more respect, not because you've demanded it, but because you've shown them that you expect it. You'll feel more confident, more energized, and more in control of your own life. You'll start giving to others from a place of abundance, not depletion, and that's when you can make the biggest impact. But first, you need to stop letting people walk all over you. Take a stand for your own value and watch how your life begins to change. Lack of assertiveness is a silent killer of potential. It's the inability to speak up for yourself, to set clear boundaries, and to stand firm in your own beliefs. When you lack assertiveness, you let opportunities pass by, you allow others to dictate the terms of your life, and you find yourself constantly accommodating, even when it costs you more than you're willing to give. You become a passenger in your own life, instead of the driver. Being non-assertive is like sitting in the back seat while someone else drives. You might be in the car, but you're not in control of where it's headed. The danger here is that you begin to lose your sense of direction, your confidence, and your sense of self-worth. When you don't assert yourself, you give away your power. You allow others to decide what's important for you, and in doing so, you surrender your personal power. You might think you're being agreeable or avoiding conflict, but in reality, you're just holding yourself back. You're letting life happen to you instead of taking charge of your own path. Now, don't confuse assertiveness with aggression. Being assertive doesn't mean bulldozing over others or dismissing their needs. It means expressing your own needs and desires clearly and confidently. It's about knowing what you want and being willing to go after it without apologizing for it. Assertiveness is the strength to say no when something isn't in alignment with your values or goals, and to say yes to what moves you forward. It's about having the courage to make decisions for yourself, even when those decisions might not be popular or easy. The truth is, if you don't speak up for yourself, others won't know what you want or need. If you never set boundaries, people will continue to take advantage of your time, your energy, and your resources. And if you don't stand firm in your own beliefs, you'll constantly find yourself swayed by the opinions and judgments of others. Lack of assertiveness leads to frustration, resentment, and a sense of powerlessness. You begin to feel like you're always giving in, always compromising, always second-guessing yourself. So how do you break the cycle? You start by recognizing that you have the right to take up space. You have the right to speak your mind, to express your needs, and to make decisions that are best for you. And the more you practice being assertive, the easier it becomes. You start small, asking for what you want in everyday situations, setting clear boundaries, and saying no when necessary. You'll find that when you begin asserting yourself, people will start to respect you more, and you'll start to respect yourself more as well. Being assertive isn't about being tough, it's about being clear, confident, and consistent. It's about taking ownership of your own life and making sure that your actions align with your values. When you're assertive, you stop letting life happen to you. You take the wheel, set the course, and steer your life in the direction you want to go. Assertiveness is the foundation of personal power. Without it, you'll find yourself stuck in the same place, feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. But with it, you can unlock your true potential, live with purpose, and create the life you deserve. Not prioritizing yourself is one of the biggest mistakes you can make in life. It's the mindset that says everyone else's needs come before your own, that serving others is more important than taking care of yourself. You think you're being noble, sacrificing for the greater good, but in reality, you're setting yourself up for burnout and frustration. You're giving everything you've got to everyone else, and in the process, you're neglecting the most important asset you have, you. When you don't prioritize yourself, you end up depleted. You end up exhausted, mentally drained, and emotionally spent. You give all your time, energy, and resources to other people, to your job, or to commitments that don't serve you. And over time, you lose touch with what you really want, what you really need, and what you're truly capable of. You end up in a cycle of constant busyness, running on empty, without ever taking the time to refuel. The truth is, if you don't take care of yourself, you'll have nothing left to give to anyone else. You can't pour from an empty cup. It's a simple concept, yet so many people overlook it. You think that by focusing on others, you're being selfless, but in the long run, you're only hurting yourself and those around you. When you're running on fumes, you don't perform at your best, and the relationships you value most suffer. You can't show up as your best self if you're not taking care of your body, your mind, and your spirit. You need to fill your own cup first so you have the strength to give to others in a way that's sustainable and meaningful. Prioritizing yourself doesn't mean being selfish. It means understanding that you are the foundation of everything else in your life. Without a strong, healthy foundation, nothing else can stand. It's about taking time to rest, to recharge, and to invest in your own growth and development. It's about creating the space to focus on your own goals, your own well-being, and your own happiness. You can't expect to achieve success, build meaningful relationships, or contribute to the world if you're not taking care of the most important resource you have, yourself. The key to prioritizing yourself is recognizing that self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You need time for yourself, time to rest, time to think, and time to grow. This doesn't mean you have to drop everything or stop helping others, but it does mean you have to be intentional about carving out time for what you need. Whether it's physical health, mental clarity, or emotional stability, you have to create the space for these things in your life. When you do, you'll find that everything else falls into place. You'll have more energy, more focus, and more clarity to take on the challenges that come your way. So if you find yourself constantly giving, constantly doing, and constantly putting others first, ask yourself this: when was the last time you made yourself a priority? When was the last time you took the time to invest in yourself, to rest, or to do something that nourishes your soul? If you're not making yourself a priority, it's time to start. You can't keep giving to others if you're not giving to yourself first. Prioritize your own well-being and watch how your life transforms. Falling into the nice guy girl trap is a common pitfall that many well-intentioned people stumble into, and it can be one of the most frustrating and disheartening traps to break free from. It's the mindset that says, if I'm just nice enough, if I do everything for everyone, then they'll like me, they'll appreciate me, and they'll treat me well. The truth is, it rarely works that way. Being nice without any boundaries or standards is not a virtue, it's a weakness, and it can lead you down a path where you're constantly giving and never receiving. When you fall into the nice guy girl trap, you start to believe that your value is in how much you can do for others. You think that by pleasing people, by always saying yes, by putting everyone else's needs ahead of your own, you'll gain their approval and affection. But what you don't realize is that people don't respect you for what you do, they respect you for who you are. And when you give without receiving, when you sacrifice your own needs for the sake of others, you send the message that you don't value yourself. You end up being taken for granted, overlooked, and even manipulated by the very people you're trying to please. Here's the harsh truth: being nice all the time doesn't guarantee you anything. You might think that being the good person, the helpful person, the one who never says no, will earn you love and respect, but in reality, it can make you invisible. When you constantly put others' needs above your own, you lose your own identity. You stop standing for what you want, and you start becoming a mirror for what everyone else wants from you. Instead of building real, meaningful relationships, you create an environment where you're just a resource to be used. You're not seen for who you are, but for what you can provide. The problem with this approach is that it eventually leads to resentment. You give and give, but you never get back what you truly need. You start feeling overlooked, unappreciated, and even bitter because you're giving away pieces of yourself that you can never get back. You may think you're being selfless, but in reality, you're not being fair to yourself. You're denying yourself the opportunity to set boundaries, to protect your time, and to demand respect. Being a nice guy girl doesn't mean being kind or generous. It means being willing to sacrifice your own well-being, your own goals, and your own values to please others. And that's not sustainable. It's important to understand that being genuinely kind and generous comes from a place of strength, not weakness. It means giving to others when it's right to do so, but also knowing when to say no, when to protect your own time, and when to put your own needs first. So how do you break free from the nice guy girl trap? It starts with setting boundaries. You need to learn to say no when something isn't right for you. You need to recognize that your time and energy are valuable, and that you have every right to prioritize your own goals and well-being. This doesn't mean you stop being kind or generous. It just means you start being kind and generous to yourself first. You stop seeking validation through constant approval, and you start building your own self-respect. When you stop being a people pleaser and start being true to yourself, you'll find that the right people will appreciate you for who you are, not just for what you do for them. You'll stop attracting relationships where you're just a doormat, and you'll start attracting people who respect you and value you for your authenticity. And most importantly, you'll gain the confidence to live life on your terms, knowing that you deserve to be treated with the same kindness, respect, and generosity that you offer to others. The nice guy girl. Trap isn't about being kind, it's about knowing your worth and standing firm in that value. When you do that, you'll find that life opens up in ways you never thought possible.